For years, fans believed Jon Snow was nothing more than the bastard son of Eddard Stark, raised as an outsider in Winterfell. But beneath the surface, Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire have always been leaving breadcrumbs, subtle, almost invisible hints that Jon Snow was far more than he seemed. Let's break down the quiet whispers, the symbolic details, and the overlooked moments that hinted at Jon's true identity long before it was revealed. 1. The Stark children and the direwolves. When Ned Stark's children each received a direwolf, it symbolized their connection to House Stark. But Ghost, Jon's direwolf, was different from the very beginning. Unlike the others, Ghost was pure white with red eyes, setting him apart. He was the only pup found alone, separate from the rest, almost as if he didn't truly belong with the Stark pack. Ghost's name itself was an eerie foreshadowing. Jon's past was like a ghost, unspoken, hidden, haunting his existence. His presence in Winterfell was always a quiet reminder of something unspoken, something that Ned Stark never fully revealed. 2. Ned Stark's words and reluctance. Ned Stark was a man defined by honor, yet his one alleged dishonor, the existence of Jon Snow, was something he refused to discuss. In Season 1, King Robert Baratheon asks Ned about Jon's mother. Instead of telling a detailed lie or admitting the truth, Ned simply says, "She was some woman." The hesitation in his voice, the way he carefully dodges the question, was an early clue that something was off. Ned Stark, a man who never lied, was suddenly vague and uncomfortable. Another striking moment? Before Ned left for King's Landing, he told Jon, "The next time we see each other, we'll talk about your mother." That moment lingered, left unresolved. Ned knew that his secret had an expiration date, and tragically he never got the chance to reveal it himself. 3. Maester Aemon's words at Castle Black. Maester Aemon was one of the last Targaryens alive at the Wall. When he spoke to Jon Snow about duty and love, he unknowingly foreshadowed the burden that Jon himself carried. "Love is the death of duty," he told Jon, a phrase that would later define Jon's greatest internal struggle. But the most haunting moment? Aemon once told Jon, "A Targaryen alone in the world is a terrible thing." At the time, Jon denied it, saying, "I am not a Targaryen." But the audience later learned how chillingly accurate Aemon's words were. Jon was a Targaryen, perhaps the last true male heir. What's more, Aemon's conversations with Jon always had an almost prophetic weight, as if a deep, unspoken connection existed between them. For Rhaegar Targaryen's obsession with prophecy. Jon's real father, Rhaegar Targaryen, was obsessed with the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy. He believed that the prince who was promised would save the world from darkness. At first, Rhaegar thought his son with Elia Martell, also named Aegon, was the chosen one. But something changed. Rhaegar secretly married Lyanna Stark, and their child, Jon, became the true fulfillment of that prophecy. Though the show didn't explore Rhaegar deeply, his legacy left echoes that pointed to Jon. In Season 2, Daenerys sees a vision of the Red Keep covered in snow. At the time, fans thought it represented the fall of the Targaryens, but looking back, it was a hint at Jon himself, Snow in the Red Keep. And with the revelation from House of the Dragon, we now know that Aegon the Conqueror had a vision of the White Walkers returning, a prophecy passed down through Targaryen kings. Jon, being named Aegon Targaryen, was not just another Targaryen, he was a direct part of that legacy. 5. Bran's visions and the Tower of Joy. Bran Stark's journey as the three-eyed raven ultimately revealed Jon's true parentage, but long before that, his visions hinted at something more. The Tower of Joy scene was one of the biggest turning points. We saw a young Ned Stark fighting Ser Arthur Dayne to reach Lyanna Stark. When Ned held his dying sister in his arms, she whispered something urgent. "His name is Aegon Targaryen. If Robert finds out, he will kill him. You have to protect him." The importance of this moment couldn't be overstated. Ned didn't just take in his sister's child. He sacrificed his honor, his reputation, and his family's trust to keep Jon's true identity a secret. And that secrecy? It was the reason Jon never truly belonged anywhere. He was raised a Stark, but he wasn't really a Stark. He lived among Night's Watch brothers, but he wasn't truly one of them either. Jon spent his life searching for a place to belong. because the truth of who he was had been buried so deeply. 6. Daenerys and the final confirmation. Jon never sought power, but power sought him. When Samwell Tarly and Bran Stark finally revealed the truth, Jon's first reaction wasn't excitement, it was disbelief. "My father was the most honorable man I ever met. You're saying he lied to me my whole life?" Even in that moment, Jon still saw himself as Ned Stark's son. But the biggest confirmation of his identity wasn't just in the words of others, it was in Daenerys' reaction. She didn't react with love or understanding. Instead, she immediately asked, "If it's true, that means you have a claim to the Iron Throne." This was the final tragedy of Jon's journey. He had finally learned who he was, but instead of giving him peace, it only caused more turmoil. Conclusion: the truth was always there. Jon Snow's true identity was never just a last-minute twist, it was embedded in the story from the very beginning. From Ned's words to Ghost's symbolism, from Maester Aemon's warnings to Rhaegar's prophecy, the hints were everywhere. Jon was never just a bastard. He was never just a Stark. He was never just a Night's Watch brother. Jon Snow was the song of ice and fire itself, the child of a Stark and a Targaryen, born to bridge the worlds of ice and fire. The tragedy? He never wanted to be any of those things. And in the end, despite the truth, he remained what he always believed himself to be. Just Jon. What do you think? Were there any other subtle clues that hinted at Jon's true identity? Let us know in the comments.